Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years, and our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
The difference of how we get from here to here happens over 90-day quarters, but what's going to make the difference is our clear targets that we set in between. Are y'all with me on this? So if we set our targets here on a foundation of bullshit that's not true, what's the chances of us getting to that next level? Zero. Why? Because I don't have a true belief to really truly believe myself that I can get to that point. Great example is Ryan before. Ryan before made a target, quit smoking, was going to quit smoking, and what happened? Well, before you did that, before you didn't quit the first time, right? Or times.
I mean, I could just have
tell
one.
that embarrassing story, I'd go home for lunch and in front of the whole group and we'd take a shower because I didn't want to smoke a cigarette here. But it was embarrassing. So for me to say that, it kind of sounds silly now.
Right, that's one thing I wrote down in the notes that it says, if you look at who you are today, right, you couldn't have pulled that shit off a few years ago. And so part of that comes through what? Growing and expanding who I am through here. And so this is personal to you all in every single aspect. And so I want you guys to, as we go through it, right, truly dig in and see kind of what's the reality of it, what's bringing you power, what's not bringing you power. Ultimately, everything wants to stack up to give you two things. One, to get you paid, right, and to be happy. And so there's different parts of life that ebbs and flows between personal and business, but ultimately they are connected in a way. Because you can get one, right, but you may lose the other. If you're focused on both, you can't have both at the same time, right? But it's hard because you have to raise the capacity of who you are as a person. Me, a long time ago, I was really good at business, not great at personal life outside of business, right? And it took a way to be able to learn and have to adjust and grow to be able to do that. Does that make sense to y'all there? And so that's the overall part of what we're doing. We're going to have some questions, and here's the one thing. The one true, most valuable way to get to the true foundation is through one thing. What do you think that is? Questions. I kind of framed that one up the wrong way, but the reality is questions. Why? It's the only way to unlock our mind. It's the only way to unlock our client's mind. It's the only way to unlock the prospect's mind is through questions. I've taught that a million times, right? The only way to change anybody's mind, especially your prospect or your potential client or even your now client, is through questions. Because if not, I'm just battling them, right? You're battling yourself and you're building a part off bullshit. And so I want to be able to inquire inside to kind of feel out where I'm at and kind of what's going on overall. Does that make sense? I want to look at two things. Switch it up for you really quick. I want to look at the reality of where I am today. And I'm going to contrast that and we're going to build that on the reality of what? Tomorrow, right? AKA 90 days from now in this regard. So the Tuesday, right? 12 weeks from, I guess, the first Tuesday of this year. We got to get that dialed in as well. And the other thing to remember, right? The problem with most people that we go back to is that we're a liar to ourselves about our patterns, our habits, and our addictions. I'm going to say that again, right? We're a liar to ourselves about our patterns, our habits, our addictions, right? It's true. I caught myself yesterday. I went to Chipotle with Baron, right? And then went there and I was like, I'm not going to get chips. And I ended up getting chips, right? I already ordered chips. Like, damn it, I got chips. But I didn't need the chips. I got like two at the very end, threw them away, right? Because I knew that what it was, an addiction to a pattern, just getting them anyway. I didn't need the chips, right? It's part of a pattern, but we got to be aware enough to do what? To make sure I can change that and understand the reality of what my patterns, my addictions, and habits are. That's the only way to be able to build them. Okay, and so the one thing to look at here too is how do I build a solid foundation of who I am right now, and I'm not limited by that box so much. Does that make sense? What question or feedback you guys have? Last thing here, we'll draw it for you guys again, is this part. So we have today, so as you can see, of kind of how the process works, if anybody's been through this, right? We have today, and we have 90 days, and we have what? Our body. What's the next one? Balance. Body being balance. And business. Sorry, I was already writing the next one. Sorry. Body, being, balance, and business today. Now I have the same thing. I'll just write B so you can see up top here of when? Tomorrow, which is our situation here is 90 days. We can also do a year one, but for now it's very simple to do a 90 days and obviously reverse engineer from that. Does that make sense? And so it's super, super simple. Why? Because we're going to get very clear targets that I can believe that I can make this gap from here to here. I might not be able to quit smoking cigarettes for a full year, but I can quit smoking cigarettes for 90 days. And then guess what? The man that I build, or the woman that I build in that 90-day period, now has the capacity and power to do what? Go the next 90 days. Wow, holy cow. And then how much more has that taught you from a insider power, I guess, experience of commitment and avoiding those opportunities and addictions? Because we talked about it a little bit.
Oh yeah, well I still have it. I still got it on my 90-day goals as of now.
Right.
I'm still rolling with it. I want to go to year 2. I mean, but as far as, at home, my home life, as far as, my other, it really affected my other, she really didn't tell me how disgusting it was until I quit. So, for the power of that and just being able to, not even have to, I don't know, go all the way home, smoke that cigarette, take a shot.
Looking back, how ridiculous was it?
It was stupid as hell.
Right? So, but the problem is, what happens? We live in that reality and that we don't even know that we're doing it. We don't know what it looks like on the outside. And so from a cascade effect, and this is one thing we'll talk about today, everything we go through is going to have a cascade effect in other areas of your life. Right? Would you be able to, would you say that stopping the cigarettes which is a body goal, had a cascade effect in your relationship?
Well, we didn't.
Well, you just said that she liked it better.
Yeah, she did.
Okay, yeah.
But basically, I mean, it's just the smell was terrible. I didn't know that because you don't really think about those things when you're smoking a cigarette. The after smell, and people that don't smoke cigarettes can smell that shit.
Including your clients. Yeah. All right, so what I was getting at is you mentioned that, Becky, and you told me before too, she's very thankful for that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so that's something that improves your balance just by making a change in your body. Right? A lot of times I see the whole thing too, especially in intimacy. If someone is really self-conscious about their body, guess what? They don't have a whole lot of intimacy with their partner because they feel so bad about themselves. They can't love the other person the way that they should, or the other person wants to be felt. I've seen it happen all the time, both in my groups and even here before. Right? And so part of that is how do we increase that? And so the key parts here of this part, number 1, I must tell the truth. Anybody new, right? We have this thing called real, raw, relevant, right? Real means what? 100% real. I live in facts. I live in the truth. That's the hardest thing for most people to do when they come in. You don't realize it. And then once you learn it, and Katie and I talked about this, and Alex talked about this, is once you learn this of living in a true place of facts, right, and truth, what do you notice about other people around you outside? Like you mentioned the other day about it. You go to places and you're around people, you're like, holy cow. And they don't even realize it, right?
It also just gets me like triggered to the point where that's when you start kind of crafting the people that you surround yourself and things you put into your mind, because you just realize how. And the best way to share that is just, it's like the Matrix, right? Once you're fully, truly committed and you live by that, you can see through bullshit so easily. And so this is the hardest part, people, in this process, is I must tell the truth fully to myself, right? The ugly truth. Because if you're lucky, it may piss you off enough to make a change. Right? If not, then you're going to make a small change to be able to get there, but you got to be willing to look at that at least. Right? And so that's the one thing that's important. Now, I did a stack this morning, something totally separate, but my big takeaway was that you got to be willing to look at the ugly truth, right? Because ultimately, it will give you power, a clarity and or power, right? Meaning that once I look at it, well, I gained X amount of pounds, or well, I did this amount of deals. Whatever it is, it may piss you off, but now you got a clear foundation that gives you power to move from, right? If you're just in quicksand all the time, you're not really sure where you're going, what you're doing, that's very exhausting. Okay, and so that's the key part there as well. Now, number 2, I must write my reality on paper. Why?
More stronger.
Yep, when you actually write that down on a piece of paper, it actually activates a separate part of your brain. Now that becomes real. Why? It's visual, right? You can see it, you can feel it. It's just the facts of real numbers. It happens to me all the time, right? I can say something out, even a stack. I can say something recorded, but the minute I type it out, what happens? I feel it more because it's real. I can read it, right? I can go back and read some stacks of mine from 6, 8, 12 months ago and immediately go back into that emotion and feel it of what it was, right? And so that's just something that's important to understand there as well. Third one, I must boldly declare my commitments to others. And not actually commitment / reality. There's two sides of that. Makes sense? So in the first part, before we set the goals, whatever, you must boldly be willing to declare your reality to others. And once we set the targets, right, you must be boldly willing to declare those targets to them as well. Does that make sense, y'all? Kind of jumped ahead a little bit there, but and here's the other part. This is important to understand too. I must consciously and consistently associate with people who are driven like me. I must consciously, I got confused myself. Consciously and consistently associate with people who are driven like me. Why? Because we're pushing the same way and you're all about association.